All right, welcome back to Draws and Fades, episode 102, preview of the U.S. Open at the Country Club at Brookline in Massachusetts. Some good old Northeast golf. I'm your host, Owen Vrabel, joined by my co-host, Matthew Miller.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
And producer, Nick Voss.
What's going on, fellas? How we doing? Happy Major Week.
Major Week, U.S. Open.
My favorite event of the year.
Favorite event of the year, is that what you said?
Yeah, U.S. Open. I love the U.S. Open.
Favorite event of the year. Coming in, had a nice month of May. Need to get back in the winner's circle in June at another major. We're coming off of a major win at the PGA with Justin Thomas. We will touch briefly on Rory McIlroy winning the Canadian Open last week in Canada with a 62 on Sunday, beating Tony Finau and Justin Thomas. Pretty epic Sunday showdown between the three of them. But as always, don't forget to win big in 2022 with rotoballer.com's PGA Premium Pass. Are you ready to dominate? Rotoballer's premium DFS package includes exclusive tools, DFS cheat sheets, research stations, our lineup optimizer, and so much more to help you win big. For limited time, get your PGA Premium Pass for 50% off using our promo code DNF10 for another 10% discount. Visit rotoballer.com/radio to sign up today and start rotoballing like a boss. So as I mentioned, we'll do a brief recap, Canadian Open, but it's all about the U.S. Open this week. So we'll get into our course preview at Brookline, our strategy for this week for betting and one and done. Go through the odds list on FanDuel. I would say it's pretty easy to say this is probably the toughest major of the year. Expecting a score relatively close to par this week, so that will be exciting. And we will get into our outright plays, top 10s and 20s. And as I mentioned, one and done. So follow along on Twitter at draws_n_fades, at Owen_Vrabel, and at Matty Mills 85. U.S. Open week. And for the PGA Tour's sake, pretty nice lead-in with the Canadian Open last week, considering the LIV Tour did kick off last week. And our guy, Scotty Vincent, played pretty well. Didn't win. Charles Schwartzel won the first LIV Golf Tour event, which Charles Schwartzel hasn't won anything in a while, so good for him.
7 out of 15 cuts made on the PGA Tour this year. He just picked up a nice 4.75 mil over there.
Yeah, I don't know how the LIV Tour feels about their first event. I mean, I don't think they got a ton of eyeballs, but it was. And I think
I don't know what they were expecting because I guess they don't have like a TV deal or anything yet. But
right.
I was on a live stream for a little bit, and it did get over 100K at one point in viewers.
All right, so that's pretty solid.
So not bad. I think they got some stuff to work on. It was kind of a weird scoreboard. You couldn't find the leaderboard online, although I did see that feature on the website now, so maybe they've realized that's an issue. But there's a lot of shots being shown.
They had the leaderboard up and had like their team name, which I think the team's was a horrible idea.
The South Africa team got to pick their team before, and then they like absolutely dominated. And it's like, oh, you don't say. Just the four guys who decided that they were going to play together when they're like in the top 15 in the league go out and win.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And the leaderboard was confusing to look at because they basically had like abbreviations of guys' names next to their team name and in very small lettering. I mean, maybe I didn't have it large enough on my screen, but it was pretty tough to see where people were at.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was better than I thought it was going to be, actually, given it was the first event. There was a lot of shots being shown. I think logistically they could improve on a lot of things. But it sounds like we'll get kind of a better field next time. We got, since then, Bryson, Patrick Reed, Pat Perez going over there. We'll see who else joins in between.
Those three in particular, maybe not the best additions in terms of playing golf currently, but Bryson, you would assume, would be a big get in terms of eyeballs. Patrick Reed seems to be playing a little bit better golf, although kind of stumbled since his good form about a few weeks ago. And then Pat Perez, I guess not shocking, even though he did have some comments about the LIV Tour previously, kind of like Dustin Johnson and other guys, and then got the bag and went over there. So, yeah, I kind of feel like we're going to keep seeing guys, matriculate over there. We'll see what guys stick around. It seems like the big names at the top of odds boards and guys that you would expect kind of like legacy earning guys are trying to make a name for themselves on PGA Tour have no interest, but other guys I think will continue to do so until there's enough backlash to not, I guess, which I don't know how you even quantify that in terms of the public eye or sponsorship deals, whatever the case may be. So, but other than that, yeah, Rory's performance on the Canadian Open was extremely impressive. He's now won back-to-back Canadian Opens. His Sunday performance is wild. I mean, he's draining 40-footers. He missed a couple of other putts that could have made it an easy runaway. And Finau and JT played well. It was kind of like everything they could have asked for, having that new tour start. And then they have that lead into the U.S. Open this week where we are maybe controversially, we're going to have guys that are playing in the LIV Tour playing the U.S. Open this week. And they're probably going to be getting booed by a lot of the people in Massachusetts, although it seemed like Phil was getting a relatively warm reception for his practice rounds.
Yeah, which is crazy. I think like as much as like the journalists and stuff and some of the fans who are vocal make a big deal of it, I feel like a lot of people doesn't really change their opinion of the guy.
Yeah, I think it's pretty mixed. So, and it's impossible to calculate because like in the Twitter sphere, like you could see like a lot more negative comments than positive comments for the most part. People aren't really trying to speak of it in a positive light other than the fact that, I mean, if it were you, would you take 10 times your salary to do less work?
Yes.
Probably. So.
I would, yeah. So if anyone has that offer out there for me, please.
Yeah, any future employers, past employers, anyone interested in paying me more money for less work, I'm probably going to be inclined. So, yeah, I mean, Rory is going to be at the top of the odds board, obviously. He went off at under 10-1 last week. So, I mean, we talked about it. Anytime one of those guys wins an event, even like the Canadian Open, I feel like you're more inclined to maybe take someone under 15-1 at a major or bigger event where you think it's like big names or bust kind of deal. If someone wins at 10-1 at the Canadian Open, you just kind of move on. I mean, congratulations to all the Rory backers, obviously. We had a guy in our mentions like all of Thursday and Friday telling us how Rory was the play, as if like we didn't know that Rory could play well this week. But I think and then there's the narrative that we talk about sometimes. Is it a good thing or bad thing he won last week? I don't think you can say it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But his odds would have been better if he didn't win. So.
And what he also did, like, he finally played really well with his wedges, which is like been holding him back for so long. And it's like, is he going to do it 2 weeks in a row? Did he figure something out? Or did he just kind of use that peak performance up at the Canadian Open instead of this week at the U.S. Open?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, and it's funny because actually a lot of we obviously mentioned Finau and JT also played well. Sam Burns played well. Justin Rose blew shooting a 59 on the 18th hole. Although, to be fair, you got to play 18 holes to shoot a 59. Like he had some other miraculous shots to get him to be get that capability. But if he went up and down on 18, he would have shot 59. So maybe Justin Rose has figured something out, or maybe nothing from last week is going to mean anything. Except for the PGA Tour feeling like the guys that they know are sticking around are playing good golf, and it's good for them.
I will say, nice for us, we did a pretty good job handicapping the event. We had Kirk and Keith Mitchell, who both finished inside the top 10, and we said going into the week that if we got burned by Rory or JT winning, we would take it and move on, and that's what happened.
Yep, 100%. So I don't really have any complaints about last week, other than Adam Svensson finishing T21. That was a little bit of a stinger.
Yeah, Mo, T41.
Yeah. So they both played pretty good, but it wasn't enough. And Varner gave us some first-round leader vibes on Thursday, and that didn't come through. So there was a couple of gut punches, but other than that, Rory winning didn't really hurt me. And it all leads up into this week where it's the major. This is why we do this. This is what it's all about. So I'm excited. We don't get a lot of Northeast golf, so I'm also excited about that. I think it makes it a little bit more difficult to handicap because there's not a ton of comparable courses. We obviously haven't seen Brookline in particular in quite some time. I think it was like the late 80s was the last time we saw it.
Yeah.
Well, for U.S. Open, that is. I mean, it's obviously it hosted the U.S. Amateur in 2013 and some other events, but
the Ryder Cup in '99. But even that, you can't gauge anything off of the Ryder Cup anyway.
Right.
But I will say, Sergio Garcia put up 3.5 points in that Ryder Cup.
There is some foreshadowing there. Yeah. So, do you guys have any other thoughts on the Canadian Open before we get into the preview?
No, I think we can hop into the U.S. Open.
All right. Country Club at Brookline. Matt, what do we got?
Yeah, we have par 70, 7,264 yards, a mix of bent and POA greens. So it's not the traditional U.S. Open course in the sense that when you think U.S. Open, you're thinking of like an extremely long course. Only 7,264 yards, but not as long as a typical course. I will say, though, it's going to play very difficult still. We have thick rough. We have really small greens. They're actually the second smallest greens in the PGA rotation for major venues, only to Pebble Beach being the smallest. So we're going to get to kind of how that affects things this week. But I think accurate off the tee is going to be huge. It always is at the U.S. Open. I think even with this course being shorter, distance is still going to matter because the fairways are narrow and tough to hit, and you're hitting into thick rough if you miss the fairways. There's going to be a lot of missed fairways. So, just by basic, logic there, the longer you advance the ball, the shorter of the shot you have coming into the green out of the thick rough, which is going to make it a lot easier. There's a lot of, blind tee shots and holes where you're going to have to lay up with iron and you're going to get long approaches in. It's going to be a difficult test. I think that it's the U.S. Open, and each year it's kind of the same where it takes just a complete game to win. Like you're gonna have to be good off the tee. You're gonna have to be good with your irons. You have to accept the fact that you're gonna miss a lot of greens and make bogeys throughout the week. But you're gonna have to be able to grind it out and avoid like the complete blow up holes. Like take the doubles and triples out of play and take your bogeys when you have to. I think you really want to look for guys that are going to grind it out and guys that are not going to blow up if they have one bad hole, because you're going to have the bad holes this week. So I think when you're looking at this event, I'm not going so much into like the statistics and like which guy rates out in this stat category. Yes, it's important, but I think you have to look at this event as in like someone is going to have to be very disciplined to win this week.
Yeah.
I was listening to the interviews going into the week, and Brooks was up there and he was talking about this venue and kind of U.S. Opens in particular, and he was saying how a lot of these holes, like you're going to get to a certain spot where it's an inviting distance and you're going to want to go with the pin, but you have to be disciplined and kind of shoot to the center of the green, because if you're shooting at pins and you miss, that's where you get into a lot of trouble in these types of courses. So I think it's going to take kind of one of those guys that's just going to play smart golf, not get over aggressive. And when they have a bad hole, forget about it, go out next hole, get it back. I think that's going to be the recipe this week. So
Yep.
I don't know if you have anything else you're looking at in particular or things to add, but
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like we talked about with the PGA Championship, kind of trying to almost emulate the U.S. Open to a degree, and we talked about it when we previewed the PGA, is that like it really takes an all-around game. There are different ways to play well at these courses, but at the end of the day, it does take that kind of mentality of like it's going to be like you can't be expecting to make 7 or 8 birdies. Like you're going to have to be accepting the fact that par is a good score, and who are the guys that are going to be able to grind out those scores in different ways. So I do think that driving distance has been a very key statistic in terms of U.S. Opens past. And I don't know if it's going to be as much this week, but like you said, it's like those shorter approaches are always going to be key when you're playing out of the rough. So I think guys that are hitting their driver well are certainly going to be giving themselves an advantage this week, in not only with distance, but also in accuracy. I mean, leaving themselves on the right side of the fairway, hitting fairways in particular would definitely be advantageous. And guys that can take advantage of that with their longer irons, we're definitely going to see a ton of approach shots from 175 to 200 and 200 and above. The par threes are going to be tough. The par fours you're going to have a ton of par fours between 450, 500, and you got to be able to score on those. So that being said, I think that there are definitely some younger guys that have the ability to make birdies on holes that other guys won't, which I think can be appealing in this type of format too, where if you are able to make birdies on some of these tougher holes, I mean, you could be gaining over a stroke and a half on the field. So there's different ways. Like the plotting type player can definitely succeed at a U.S. Open. But we've seen a lot of the big hitters, have tons of success here. And just looking at past champions, I mean, John Rahm last year, Bryson in 2020, Gary Woodland was a little bit of a long shot. I mean, I think he went off at like 80-1, and that's probably the deepest long shot you were going to find for quite some time.
Brooks,
Obviously,
DJ.
Brooks won his back-to-back in 2017, 2018, then DJ, Spieth in 2015 when he was playing great golf, and then Keimer, Justin Rose. Webb Simpson, to a degree, is a little bit of an outlier because he's never been a long hitter. But similarly, like, he was elite in being able to scramble his way around a course, and he made do in 2012 at the Olympic Club. So, and then Rory has, back in 2011, also has a U.S. Open under his belt. Hasn't won a major in a while. There's plenty of storylines to be had this week, whether it's the PGA Tour players that are looking to cement their legacy or the guys on the LIV Tour looking to kind of rub it in some people's faces.
I mean, imagine one of those guys wins, the reaction.
Oh, yeah. It'll be great. Great is a relative term. I mean, the storyline around it, like just the absolute chaos that would happen if someone like Phil would be the ultimate.
Yeah. I mean, if Phil's in the mix on Sunday, it's going to be – it was crazy last year when he was in the mix against Brooks, but, like, this would be an entirely different level of, like, crazy. Yeah,
Bryson, DJ, Patrick Reed. I mean, and then I think those are probably the three craziest. And then even like Sergio, Oosthuizen, they would obviously add some storylines too. But when we get into the picks, we'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking for guys that are going to be playing well in terms of their driving game, strokes gained on approach, par 4 scoring, even par 3 scoring. Then I like the strokes gained total in difficult scoring conditions. It's really tough to replicate USGA type setups, but there's something to guys playing well when it's difficult to score, because those are the guys you're looking for that can grind out pars when other guys are making doubles and triples. So other than that, at every major, there's decisions to be made because the odds for pretty elite players tend to get pretty appealing. And that's certainly the case this week. So let's get into it. Top of the board is not a surprise. Rory McIlroy is going off at 10-1 on FanDuel Sportsbook currently. Justin Thomas at 12-1. John Rahm and Scotty Scheffler both at 15-1. And then Cam Smith and Xander Schauffele between 21 and 22. Those are your top 6. I guess we'll start off there because just to talk about the guys up top. Rory and JT, for me, I think are clear-cut the best of the elite players that are playing the best right now. And probably, like, when their peak game is on, I would just the way that they can play with their irons, like approach-wise, they're probably the best. Like, if those two were playing their best games, I think that they're going to win. That being said, 10 and 12-1 is pretty tough to take. Not going to lie, I've definitely considered JT, Scheffler, and Rahm, because I do think that an elite player wins this event. And we just went through the past winners. I mean, a lot of the best players have the best chance to win a U.S. Open. That being said, I couldn't really get there with anyone. And I don't know if Rory's going back-to-back. But, again, if he does and he goes back-to-back at 10-1, so be it.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I think Rory and JT are obviously playing the best golf right now out of this group. They're 10 and 12-1. That's really tough to kind of bite the bullet and take. Rahm, I thought about. He's a defending U.S. Open champion. He plays well in those tough conditions. He should have won the Memorial, a tougher tournament last year. He got the COVID. He won that BMW in tough conditions. He's one of those guys that kind of seems to play well when you have to grind it out, but he doesn't look as sharp lately as he does. So I think I'm going to skip this group and move a group down.
Yeah, no.
Scary, though, like you said, we're at the U.S. Open, and it kind of seems like one of the elites tends to rise in these events. So to skip the first tier is a little bit daunting, but I think we have a good grasp on what we're doing.
Yeah, Scotty, probably a little disrespectful to Scotty because in terms of playing the best golf, it's a little rude because obviously he's won 3 events in the past 4 months. He had a runner-up at the Charles Schwab, which is 2 starts ago for him.
Yeah, he just won that event.
He played well last week at the Canadian Open. Yeah. He finished 18th, but he played really well. He missed a cut at the PGA, which is probably his biggest and only setback this year, where he also drew the wrong side of the draw. So if there was anyone in this group whose number were to potentially slide a bit, I would probably lean towards Scotty for his number to do so, because I think for whatever reason, maybe it's because people are tired of him winning already, but I don't know if he's going to be bet on as much as these other guys. So his number may drift, but probably not too far, because if he gets his 20, he's going to get hammered.
It is weird. Yeah, well, it is weird, like you said, because he had all that success at the beginning part of the year, and it was kind of it almost felt like after the Masters, all right, his hot streak, if you want to call it that, is over. I don't believe that's what it was, but he's obviously an amazing player. But I think that's kind of how a lot of people saw it. But imagine he won the Charles Schwab, which could have very easily happened. This conversation would be entirely different. He'd be the favorite, and he would still be on his hot streak.
Well, and also, I mean, to be fair, that event at Colonial, he got blasted with wind coming down his back nine, and Sam Burns was chilling in the clubhouse, and then Sam Burns, it's a 35-footer from the fringe to win the event. It took a lot for him not to win. Yeah, and he actually played really well down the stretch, grinded out some pars. So, and all things being said, I think this type of event suits Scotty very well. He plays great out of the rough. He has a great driver of the golf ball. His round and green game has been immaculate this year, and he seems to be one of the most clutch putters out there. We've seen him just be nails over 10 to 15 footers all year, and that's how you win golf tournaments. So I would be not surprised at all for him to be in the mix this week for sure. And that's maybe I'm hedging my bets a little bit here, but he's probably going to be my one and done play of the week. I haven't used him yet, and he's obviously won 5 times. He's won 5 times. So I mean, he'll probably not play well, and then it'll fuck me in OAD, but that's what you get. So, but in terms of hedging my bets, I'm going to probably take Scotty at the top of the board for one and done. And Cam Smith, to a similar degree, he's 21 plus 2,100. I think he's not getting talked about a ton either this week. And I think the books are a little bit scared of putting a number above 25 on him. I don't know. I couldn't quite get there. I mean, he's played absolutely phenomenal golf this year, but I think the easiest of the 6 at the top to not take was Xander Schauffele, even though he's been great at U.S. Opens. So,
yeah, it's tough to take him to win a major when he hasn't, won in general that much. Cam Smith, I think it was just that he has some driving accuracy issues, which could be costly this week. That was kind of the setback for me on him. But yeah, I mean, I think you can make a solid case for pretty much all of them besides Xander.
Which you probably still can make a case for, but you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same case we've made for Xander over the last 3 years, and it's gotten an Olympic win.
Right. So, yeah. But I think things get very interesting after them. And if any of those guys we just mentioned, numbers slid to anything 20 or above for the guys in the top 4, or if Xander slid closer to 30, 35, I think then people probably take that. And people will still bet Xander at 22. So,
I mean, I went through my Xander phase, so I can't be that much of a hater, but I got out of it at least. So, people are, they just,
but you've been saving yourself some money on Xander. He's actually 16-1 on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Well, imagine I was still chasing the win. I mean, I would have been betting him for the last 3 years.
Yeah. Be tough.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, things get a little more interesting as you get into the mid-20s, mid-30s. A lot of decisions to be made. From 24 to 3,600. We got Patrick Cantlay, Jordan Spieth, Matthew Fitzpatrick, all 24-25. Zalatoris Burns at 27. Shane Lowry, 30. Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa, Joaquin Niemann, Tony Finau between 32 and 34. And then Sung Jae is at 36. Pretty solid group of guys here.
This is an interesting range.
So this is where decisions really started to be made for me. I wanted to add a bunch of guys in this range because it does feel like the winner is going to come from under 50-1, as we've seen kind of a pretty good trend for guys at the U.S. Open, you're going to need a top 25 golfer in the world, and this is what these guys are. So to lead it off, pretty sure we're on the same page here. We kind of chatted about this week. Jordan Spieth.
Yeah, I can't believe I got there. I don't take Spieth that often, but it made sense this week.
I mean, he's low key, not even low key at this point. I mean, he's just been really, really good off the tee this year, which is kind of a change from his typical skill set. I mean, you're used to him being a wizard around the greens, really good with the putter, and that kind of being what carries him. But he's been great with his irons. He's been great off the tee. His win at the RBC was impressive. Then backed that up with a good performance at the AT&T Byron Nelson. Played okay at the PGA. I mean, finished 34th. You'd like to see a little bit better there. And then Charles Schwab finished 7th and an 18th Memorial. I mean, he's just been very consistent.
Yeah, the Memorial was the first time he lost strokes on approach in 10 events.
Yeah.
So he's got his off the tee and approach game working well. I mean, it was crazy because, like you said, he was such a strong putter before. That's what was holding him back this year. But, I mean, it looks like I don't want to jinx it, but he's now gained putting in 3 of his last 4 events. He gained 5 strokes at the Memorial. I mean, if he has that somewhat figured out, like he's now bringing a complete game into the U.S. Open, which is exactly what it takes to win. He's a major champion. Like, I think it's a good number for him, a really good number.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting necessarily 25 to 1.
I thought he was going to be under 20, to be honest.
Yep. So, boss, this is a group play?
It's a group play, boys. I'm excited. Let's do it.
Well, don't get too excited because when you started hyping up Jordan Spieth at the PGA, things went backwards.
I was just going to say that. I might have gotten a little out ahead of my skis for the PGA, but we're over it. We're moving on. We're at a new major. Jordan's show all the things you and Matt just said. The form is there. I'm going to curtail my excitement, but I'm in. All 3 of us. Let's ride.
Love it. I mean, the next step of this comeback for him is playing well and winning a major. Yeah. I mean, obviously, like we just mentioned, I mean, his last 5 starts, a win, a runner-up, a 7th place, and an 18th at the Memorial. 34th at the PGA was his worst performance in his last 5. All things are clicking for Jordan. It seems like he's a new guy. He does have this – he still has a weird kind of pre-shot routine thing going, which I think he said that he would like to eliminate at some point. But keep doing what he's doing. I think he's going to be in perfect position this week.
Wouldn't that be something for the PGA too? I mean, you have all this live stuff starting. You get a Rory win and then follow it up with a Jordan Spieth at a major. That would be very good news for them.
Yeah. The Golden Boy winning at the U.S. Open this year would be absolutely electric for the PGA. And that's all they could ask for, and it's all we could ask for. 25 to 1.
Now that we're on board.
Yeah. And I definitely like starting our card here. I mean, like I said, this range feels like a hammer fest. Just get your bullets ready and just fire away. So we started there. Although I will say, boss, Matt, before you leave, Matt Fitzpatrick last week, he had his moments.
Back for the Fitz slander.
Yeah. Well, because I forgot to kind of mention him because he did slide down the leaderboard, I guess, towards the end of the week there. But
he slid down the leaderboard the second that I looked back on Friday, and I was like, oh, wow, he's like extending the lead here. Like, let's just pull away. And then I honestly, the instant that I messaged you two about it, he just started slowly going backwards and backwards and backwards, and it just progressively. I didn't even have to wait till the weekend for the downfall. So I guess that was nice, but. Hey.
But it is interesting and worth note. I guess you're not taking him this week, but he did win the 2013 USAM at Brookline.
He did. You don't say. I haven't heard that anywhere.
So you might not hear it much this week.
I'm actually kind of surprised. I mean, I've heard it here or there, but I think people have at least wisened up to the trap that I've fallen in a couple times of that. It's still not worth putting him on your card. So,
I mean, not to get into too much Matthew Fitzpatrick slander, but him being at 25 to 1 in this field is insanity.
Yeah. And rumor has it he's wearing the same braces he had at the U.S. Amateur too.
Oh, God. All right, so that's enough Matthew Fitzpatrick. Because in all honesty, it does shape up to be a decent course for him. Obviously, he's driven the ball really well this year too, and as we know, he has a great short game, so don't be surprised if Matt Fitzpatrick plays well, catches a top 20, maybe a top 10. I would be shocked if he wins, but we'll take all the heat we can get if Matthew Fitzpatrick wins. So good luck to everyone who's betting him. I don't suggest it. Well, let's move on, Matt. What's your second play under 50 to 1. I know you got something.
Yeah. I like Joaquin Neiman.
Okay.
He's been close. Well, he won at Riviera this year, but it feels like he's really close to winning one of these big ones. When he was third at Memorial the last time out there, we both had him. He gave us a little run on Sunday. He finally lost strokes around the green. It was his first time this calendar year, but I'm not overall, worried about that. He still had a strong year around the green. He gained 6.3 strokes on approach last time we saw him, which is a very positive sign because he was coming off back-to-back weeks where he had lost strokes on approach, and we needed him to get that back. He has that back. He's great off the tee, and he's now gained over 2 strokes putting in 4 straight events. So
pretty impressive.
He's got a pretty complete game going now too. He's still very young, but it seems like he's starting to step up at all these big events, and he's playing these tough courses well. And I kind of feel like he's one of those guys too that just he has the complete game. He's very good off the tee. I think, like you had kind of touched on, some of these longer guys might be able to cut some corners in some of these holes. I like Neiman this week. I think he's going to be very much in the mix. So I was hoping for a little bit better of a number on him, to be honest. But I think when you're at a major and you like a guy, a few points here and there, sometimes you just got to bite the bullet and take him.
Yeah, and he's actually slid down the odds list a little bit. I think he was closer to 40 to start the week, and now he's low 30s. You can still get him at 35, I believe, on DraftKings. So they're decent numbers out there. But yeah, Joaquin Neiman, I'll admit it, there are probably 5 guys in this section that I was looking at and tried to narrow it down to 2. I may end up with 3. So Neiman may end up on the card because, yeah, I mean, you look at his performances of late, obviously played well at the Memorial, finished third. Played well at the PGA. I mean, 23rd, nothing to scoff at. 25th at Byron Nelson, 12th at RBC Heritage. Played, obviously, won at Riviera. He's played tough tracks well. He is really good driver of the golf ball. He's top 20 in driving distance and top 12 in good drives gained over his last 24 rounds. He avoids bogeys very well. He's good on the longer par 5s. I mean, we know he's a great ball striker. His approach game hasn't been as immaculate as you think it would be. And maybe that's because he's kind of cleaned up the rest of his game and maybe hasn't focused on that as much. But Neiman will definitely be on my first round leader card as well because I think he's one of those guys that can actually get out. And if there's some relatively gettable pin positions on Thursday, I think he could, sneak in a 4 under, maybe a 3 under. I don't know what exactly is going to be the number you're going to need to get to win a first round leader this week. We'll see how diabolical it gets out there. But I like Neiman a lot. So he is up in the air from here now because I have, and we'll get into it, there's a slew of guys here. I will say I'm going to take Sam Burns. Sam Burns, I've been talking about it. Sam Burns, the year of Sam Burns, 2022. Well, this season in general, he's played great. I mean, wins at Charles Schwab. We just talked about it. It was the playoff win over Scheffler. Comes out after not playing for a couple hours and nails that 35-foot birdie putt. Won the Valspar. Won Sanderson Farms earlier this year. And it just feels like the next step for him is playing really well at a major, which I think he has gotten deservedly so, like some criticism for not necessarily stepping up at these bigger events. But he actually played really well at the PGA. And he finished 20th, but there were moments there where I thought he was actually going to make a run on the weekend. Didn't come into fruition. But Burns, again, kind of similar to Neiman, has kind of turned into this all-around player where we know he's a phenomenal approach player. He's first in strokes gained approach in his last 24 rounds. He's 28th in driving distance, so we know he can put it out there pretty good. And similar to Neiman as well. I mean, he avoids bogeys well. He's good on the longer par 4s. He just really does everything well. So it's tough for me to get off my guy Burns at this spot. And to his credit, I mean, it's all the winning that he's done this year is why he's at the number he's at. Would I have liked the 35 or 40? Yeah, but I'm going to take Sam Burns of what I can get him at, which at this point is 27. There were 29s, 31s out there. I think he might still be 30 on DraftKings. I think he's 28 now. So, yeah, Sam Burns is getting the credit that he deserves for being really good this year, and I think this is the next step for him. And all things considered, I think when we look back at things in a couple of years, I think Sam Burns is going to put some majors on his resume. Maybe not in bunches, and maybe he won't win one right away, but I think he'll put himself in contention this week. So.
I'm not surprised you're picking Burns. I will say my knock on him recently was his performance in majors, but he did a good job at the PGA, which played tough. So I think he kind of answered some of those questions. Whether or not he can compete in the big events that are, really tough out there. He showed he could. He won Charles Schwab. I mean, that it's not like a signature event per se, but the winning score of that was -10. So that played pretty tough as well. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think I couldn't get there at that number, but I think he's a pretty good fit this week.
Yeah, I may or may not have looked at Colonial as like a nice comp for tough scoring, tough conditions, maybe using that as a little bit of an angle of why Sam Burns is going to play well this week. But I think it's definitely out there. I think the secret's out on Sam Burns. He's one of the best players in the world. He's top 10 in official world golf ranking, and this is just the next step for him. So I'm not going to miss out on Burns' first major, that's for sure. That being said, this is where things get difficult for me. I'm between Zalatoris, Morikawa, and Neiman for an additional ad here. We just gave all the points on Neiman. Morikawa at 32.
Going Team Chili.
The Team Chili special, Joaquin Neiman, yeah. It's certainly up. It's a potential. Colin Morikawa, though, for me, I don't know how many times I mentioned this. I know Boss. I don't know if he keeps count, but I talk about Morikawa getting over 20 and being like a must bet. Now he's at 32. Obviously, he's kind of trying to figure some things out, but it's crazy because he finished 5th at the Masters in April. He finished 2nd at Riviera back in February, where he had just gone on a nice run of golf, where he finished 5th at the TOC, 7th at the Zozo, finished runner-up to Rory at the CJ Cup. And then since then, it's kind of been a little bit of a slide. And a little bit of a slide from Morikawa is 26th at the RBC, didn't play well at the PGA, finished 55th, and then missed the cut at the Memorial, which is a course you would expect him to play well at. So things are a little concerning. I know he's got some swing thought issues currently because he's used to playing a fade, and now he's playing like a little bit of a draw, which in theory you would think would be bad for a guy mentally. But I think if he comes out and that's what he's like, you got to figure that out early on. So, and I can only imagine that a guy of his stature and his elite status with his irons, like I just have a good feeling that he's kind of going to figure it out this week, and I really don't want to miss out on a 32-1 on Colin Morikawa. So that's my thought with him. And then Will Zalatoris has been just so good at majors. So this is why I'm kind of stuck in this mid-range here. But I think I've kind of talked myself into taking Colin Morikawa, even though he is Andercursed. Shout out Tim Anderson from the Pet Mayo experience. But I think it might be Tim's week. He might be bounced back with a Colin Morikawa win. So I'm on there, 32-1. That number has continued to creep up. I haven't even placed it yet because I don't know if he might just not be getting bet this week. People seeing poor form, but it really hasn't been that bad.
No, well, after the report that just kind of surfaced on Twitter, I don't think he's going to be getting too much traction. So yeah, I think might go up even more, to be honest.
Yeah, well, last time a little story came out before a major about him being a little worried about something.
Yeah, it worked out. I will say, my two questions for you would be, are you concerned that the short game's been like really bad for him? And we know it's around the green and the putting, which theoretically at a U.S. Open, that's going to be a little bit troublesome when you have a lot of like 5 to 10 footers for par. But he did play well at the U.S. Open last year. Is that one of those things that you're not really too worried about? And
yeah, I mean, I'm not super concerned about it. Again, with Morikawa, it's like you're banking on him hitting more greens in regulation than the rest of the field. And his driver, when it's on, is extremely accurate. I think he'll be finding more fairways than the rest. And it's like a ceiling play with him and value play when you get him at 32-1. But also, to a degree, I think his around the green game is a little bit overblown. I mean, yeah. I mean, over his last 20 rounds, he's lost a half stroke around the green. So it's not like diabolical. His last 20 events, last 5 events, it's been bad, but that's why we're getting him a 32-1. So
yeah, well, I mean, I do agree with that point where if you have a guy that's a 2-time major champion and he's won like 5 times in the PGA Tour in the last 2 or 3 years, like sometimes you just got to take him at a major and hope that the big name shows up big.
Yeah, and when you make a point like I have about taking Morikawa when he gets to a good number, like you got to take him when he gets.
Well, it's also like in theory, like I get Zalatoris is playing really well and he should, fit for this event, and I think he's going to play well this week too. But it's like when your decision comes down to a guy that's never won and a guy that's won 2 majors and 5 times on tour, like it kind of makes sense to go with Morikawa.
Yeah, but everything statistically lines up for Will Zalatoris playing better this week, and honestly, I'm definitely considering a top finishing position on Zalatoris in some capacity, whether it's a top 20 or top 10. I think he's a lock to play well. I really do. I think this is the type of course that sets up very well for him. He's continued to play well at the majors. It seems like the more difficult it is to score, the better Zalatoris plays. And we'll see if that comes into fruition this week. But yeah, I mean, he's 11th over his last 36 rounds in difficult scoring conditions. I will say, though, on that statistic, Morikawa is 3rd. So surprisingly, 3rd over his last 36 rounds in difficult scoring conditions. He's 3rd in this field. So I think the Morikawa slide is a little overblown. And we're going to find out how that works out for me this week. But Morikawa's on the card, decision made on the pod. So that being said, Zalatoris and Neiman will both be first-round leader bets for sure.
Okay, I like that.
So is there anyone else? I guess we've kind of touched on most of these guys. I think Lowry will be popular. I mean, I had to even chop him down too. I mean, 30-1 seemed a little low for him. But again, he's played great this year. He's going to be great in difficult scoring conditions. I think he's a pretty good bet this week for a finishing position. And if you think he can win, I mean, he's also a major champion. So I don't hate that. The Hovland slide, I mean, he's down to 32-1 as well, next up to Morikawa. And then Finau and Sungjae, I think, will be popular too. Finau has played really good golf recently. Played great last week. If Rory doesn't shoot the lights out, he wins the Canadian Open last week. Tough to bet Tony to win a major, but if there's anything about trending, Tony seems to be trending to win a major. We know he's played well at them as well, but I don't know. Kind of like the Xander effect with Tony. So.
Yeah, I couldn't get there with either of them. I think they're both playing well. They should, theoretically be good fits, but just can't get there with that number at the U.S. Open.
All right, and Sungjae Im as well. Definitely be popular. He can definitely be a grinded outside play, but I'm not going to get there with Sungjae. His numbers slid tremendously. He probably could have got over 50 at some point. He's at 36 now. But we'll get into another nice and tasty range between 40 and 65. Here we got Max Homa, Hideki Matsuyama, Cam Young, all at 41 on FanDuel. DJ is at 44, and then Daniel Berger, Corey Connors, Billy Horschel, all at 50. Brooks Koepka at 55, and then Tommy Fleetwood, Mito Pereira, Harold Varner at 65-1. And then, I mean, in relation to a U.S. Open, 70 above, pretty much long shot territory. We'll give you some thoughts down there. But in this, second middle tier, Matt, what do you got?
I'm going to start with Max Homa.
Okay.
I have a future on him from after the Wells Fargo at 80-1, which
that's
I like
nice.
A lot more than this number. Yeah, but I would say even if I didn't have that and he was at this number, I would still probably take him too.
Wow. Okay.
I am kind of a Homa guy. We're Homa guys on this show, but he's another one of those guys that, I mean, he wins at hard courses. He won the Wells Fargo this year, which was a tough event. He won at Quail Hollow, and he won at Riviera. So 3 of the, kind of tougher events on the PGA schedule. He was 5th last week at Memorial. He's playing really well right now. 5th at Memorial last week, 23rd Charles Schwab, 13th at the PGA. Then he won the Wells Fargo. He gained off the tee, on approach, and putting in all 4 of those. He lost around the green at the PGA and the Wells Fargo, but he gained around the green in his last 2 at the Charles Schwab.
Well, looks like Matt's a little frozen currently.
Oh, boy. Well, for what it's worth,
I'm back. Can you hear me now?
There.
Yeah, he's back.
Okay. Yeah, that was a quick bleep off, but yeah.
For what it's worth, Boss is on Homa too, it sounds like. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. We are on a team Homa play that worked out for us well at the Wells Fargo.
It's worked out for us several times. No need to fix. Don't fix it if it ain't broken.
Yeah, he's bringing a complete game this week. He got over his kind of major hump at the PGA where he came in 13th because he was similar to Burns, where like he was a really good golfer but just didn't play well at majors. Seems like he's over that. He's one of those like calm guys. He's talked a lot about his mindset and not getting too thrown off out there. I think that'll be big this week. So I'm expecting Homa to play well. I like him a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not getting there with Homa this week. A lot of options for me down the board, and think he's a good ad, though. I mean, if there's going to be a year where Homa's going to kind of turn into this guy that can compete in all these events, this is the year that he's started to do it. So I like that. It's similar to Sam Burns. I like that thought. I have a feeling that we are both going to be on a man who is a two-time U.S. Open champ and won it in back-to-back years, and people are kind of writing him off, and as they do.
They do it, yeah.
And he hasn't played well. He did just get married. There's not a ton of recent form to speak of, but it's impossible to not take Brooks Koepka 55-1. I don't care what anyone says. You can make fun of people who take Brooks at over 50 for it. It just makes no sense. Like, I get if we were taking him at 25-1 and you wanted to say something, but at 55-1, taking a two-time U.S. Open champ, four-time major winner, and I mean, we're not so far removed from him playing well at the Waste Management in February. I mean,
no, and he played really well on day one of the Players too, and he got caught in like the ridiculous wind and missed the cut. He was -3 through like 15 and a half holes there at the Players on day one. He was around the 16th green. There was bad wind, and then he finished up that hole and then went to 17 and hit it in the water and like fell apart. But then he made it out of his group play at the match play. He lost to DJ in like the quarterfinals there. Like, he was playing fine. I get it. He was bad at the Masters and he was bad at the PGA. But I don't really care. He's one of those guys that, like, last year he showed up at the PGA after not playing for like 2 months, except for 2 rounds of the Byron Nelson, and he lost to Phil. He came in second, but he probably should have won that. Like, that was a year ago. He's still the big game hunter. I think at this number, like you said, when people make fun of it, it's kind of dumb because who else are you picking down here that like is apparently flawless? Brooks Koepka is one of those guys. It's kind of like what you talked about with Morikawa, why I think you have to pick him, because if he's like in the mix, like if he plays well in the first round, say, he's going to be one of the favorites, and everyone's going to be like, oh shit, like everyone's going to be scared of him. They're laughing at him now. If he has a good first round, every single person who doesn't have him is going to be complaining, oh, I should have taken Brooks to that number.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, people probably stick to their guns until he wins, but at the end of the day, you want to say there's only a few negatives you can say about his major history. I mean, and that's this year. He didn't play well at the Masters, didn't play well at the PGA. But all you have to do is go back to last year, finish 6th at the Open, 4th at the U.S. Open, should have won the PGA. And it's like, these are the types of courses that Brooks is going to play well at. He's going to grind it out. We know he's a complete package player when he's got his A game. And you tweeted about it this week, which is a beautiful sight. He's got his old driver in the bag. He's feeling himself. He's newly married, got no worries in the world. And he's not scared of these types of events. And I think other people kind of get in their nerves, get a little anxious. He's going to be doing just fine. And I think, like you said, we'll know what kind of Brooks we're getting on Thursday. And if it's the Brooks that brings his A game, like, watch out. And that's why having him at 50-5-1 is amazing. Yeah,
he said that he's been playing. I mean, he hasn't been playing in competitive tournaments, but he said he's been practicing a lot. And he's like the notorious, I don't need to practice. So I don't think he'd be lying about that. It's like, also it's the U.S. Open. He's lost to 4 guys in the last 4 U.S. Opens total. So, like, you have to take him at that number. You just have to.
Love it. I mean, if people tuned into this podcast and didn't expect us to take Brooks, I don't know what to tell you. So
yeah, no, I can't. I really want him to play well this week too, to shut up all the guys who are like chirping, oh, like you shouldn't take Brooks this week. No one else, by the way, feels the need to announce who you shouldn't take over 50-1.
No.
So I mean, if we really want to go that route, like, I don't think you should take Harold Varner this week.
You're right. So between 40 and 65, you are obviously on Brooks and Homa. I have definitely had some considerations for Daniel Berger and Billy Horschel. Horschel down to 50-1. I think it's tough to back Billy, considering I mean, it's tough. I don't know. It's like he's playing great golf. He just wins the Memorial, a tough event. And I guess the thing you could say is that he doesn't particularly play well at majors, which is certainly true. I mean, he did have a 4th place finish at the U.S. Open back in 2013. But since then, I mean, really nothing super impressive to speak of. But this might be the best run of golf that Horschel's ever played. I mean, you look back into late 2021, 9th at the Tour Championship, 11th at the Farmers in January, 6th at the Phoenix Open, 2nd at the Arnold Palmer. Then wins the Memorial, played well at the Honda. I mean, he can play well in these tougher conditions. Like, I think it would be a big ask for Billy to win a major at this point, but I did definitely consider him. And Berger, too. I think he's kind of – we've talked about it. He's not necessarily played great at majors either, but the U.S. Open in particular, he has played pretty well. I mean, he's 4 straight made cuts, 6 in 2018, 7th last year. And I think that the injury bug might be behind him. I mean, he played really well at the Memorial, finished 5th, played well at the Charles Schwab, obviously missed a cut at the PGA, didn't play well at the Masters. And then not so long ago, we saw him, obviously, to a degree, gag away the Honda, but finished 4th there, finished 13th at the Players, played very well. So Berger's game feels like it's going to be pretty good this week. Like he's figured out his driver. Like, he's not going to be long, but he's going to be extremely accurate. And his long irons can be certainly, a plus add to him. He's 23rd in strokes gained on approach in his last 24 rounds. He's a really good scrambler. I trust his around the green game, and I to a degree, I trust him putting. I mean, he just gained over 6 strokes putting at the Memorial. Putted really well at the Players. I think I'm kind of talking myself into taking Daniel Berger here at 50-1. Wasn't really expecting to get there at the beginning of the week, but when you look at it at 50-1, I feel like it's pretty good value considering if there wasn't the injury type scare with him, and I think the major vibes around him are that he's not going to play well at these events, that more people will be on Daniel Berger. But 50-1 is pretty enticing for me.
Yeah, I've taken Berger a lot. I'll be disappointed if he gets it done this week and I'm not on it, but I just couldn't get there this week with him. But I do agree. He has the profile where he should be able to succeed here. I was kind of hoping for a drift. I think he drifted a little bit at the PGA, and I was able to get him at like 65 or something like that. So I was hoping to kind of see that again, and it hasn't happened yet. But I still think it's a decent number for him. I just could not get there this week.
All right. And then this next one might be a little surprising. I mean, I've talked about him in the past, definitely taken him a few times. And it just feels like a U.S. Open vibe for Tommy Fleetwood. 65-1. He does have some great U.S. Open history. I mean, he finished 4th in 2017, 2nd in 2018, and really did have a chance back in 2018. I mean, he played incredible on Sunday to really get into the mix. But I think Fleetwood's one of those guys that's going to kind of plod his way around, and he's low-key played really good golf this year as well. He's made 8 straight cuts on the PGA Tour, with his worst finish being at the Byron Nelson. Other than that, I mean, he's got top 20 at the Arnold Palmer, the Players, the Masters, Valspar, finished 5th at the PGA, the most recent major, where, again, you need to have a completely well-rounded game, and he gained strokes in all metrics, gained 12 strokes total, 8.5 tee to green, 1.5 off the tee, 4.5 on approach, putted really well, played really well around the green. I think Fleetwood's kind of really rounding in form here. And 65-1 was enticing enough for me to get to, even though I don't know if he'll be popular by any means, but I do like Fleetwood a lot this year.
Yeah, I had him at the PGA. We've kind of talked about it before, how I like him better on like these difficult courses. I think he's kind of just gets it done and grinds it out.
Yep, I mean, he's top
20.
20.
About it. It sucks because I think I had him at 90-1 on the PGA. He's down to 65, so I went elsewhere. Kind of in this range that we're in now. I just couldn't fit him in there at that number, but I don't hate that.
Yeah, I mean, he's top 25 in a lot of the key metrics I looked at. Strokes gained on approach, proximity from 175 to 200, strokes gained total on difficult scoring conditions, par 4, 450 to 500. Really good on the par 3s. He's not super long, but he's well above average, and he's been driving the ball really well. So I think Tommy's game is in the perfect spot to contend this week. We'll see if that can happen, but I like Tommy a lot at 65, and that is going to be my last outright play of the week. I've rattled off a bunch already, but that's kind of where I'm ending my card in terms of outrights. Didn't work out well for the Memorial, having just straight under 65-1s, but I think at this event it makes sense. So I know you have a few bombs. We'll get to those as we go down the board. But do we have any thoughts on going back to Harold Varner for a first round leader play at the U.S. Open?
No, I'm not going to take care of Varner this week, as I stated a few minutes ago. I'm not going to take him with the U.S. Open either. But I do have one more outright in this range
Okay.
that we glossed over. It's probably going to be a stupid pick. I just saw the name next to the number, and I could not pass. I'm going to take DJ 44-1.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, we did gloss over that.
I just think it's crazy. I thought about it last major. I think he was like mid-20s to upper 20s to the PGA, and I passed on him, and he didn't play well. He hasn't had a particularly good year. I just think at a U.S. Open, I mean, he's got the kind of profile I'm looking for. He's just the calmest guy. He does not get flustered out there. I know he's getting older now. There's kind of some questions whether his commitment's fully there. But he's played too well, at U.S. Opens and big events for me to see that number and pass on him. Maybe some of the hate he's getting from, going to live is going to light a little fire under him this week. And I think DJ's another one of those guys. If he's kind of hangs around the first couple of days and gets in the mix come the weekend, he's a guy I want on my card rather than kind of lingering around that leaderboard.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if he'll ever get a fire lit under him though. He just doesn't have that personality, it seems. But that actually is not
it's
not a bad personality to have at the US Open though.
What's that?
It's not a bad personality to have at the US Open.
No, it's not. I think he's got a good personality for the US Open. I mean, I will say too, for as kind of bad as a year as he's had, it is a little bit going back, but it wasn't that long ago that we were in the fall and DJ just was the best player in the Ryder Cup and everyone was like, DJ's back. So he had a rough year last year. He was great out of kind of nowhere in the Ryder Cup, and then he's been disappointing this year, but I mean, he can just pop for some of these big events. So I'm gonna take a chance. It's a number play for me, and just kind of the pure potential of him being there, and having kind of that history in these big events. He has won a U.S. Open. He knows what it takes.
Yeah, we definitely talked about it leading up into this week. I'm kind of surprised I'm not getting there with DJ, but I just feel like his game has just been so far off into what his potential is, which means he could easily flip it this week and play really well. But I didn't get there.
Would you say it's a good number, or what number would it have taken for you to get there, or you just weren't going to get there?
I mean, I guess I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess if he was at Brooks's number, it would be guaranteed.
Yeah.
So 10 points higher, I guess.
That's fair.
Which is funny because he is 28 on DraftKings, so obviously FanDuel's, hanging that treat out there, asking for me to grab it, but
and I fell for it. I'm like the fish. I think I threw the bait out there and I grabbed right onto it. They're reeling in.
But it's funny too. I mean, DraftKings seems to be a little bit more worried about Brooks and DJ this week than FanDuel. Brooks is at 40 on DraftKings and DJ at 28. So we'll see. We'll see. I think both of them definitely, if they're in the mix, people are going to be thinking about them potentially winning and being foolish for not having them on their cards. So that being said, I think we'll move on to the bomb territory. 70 and above. I mean, I'll list a few guys here, but kind of just fire away. Any top 20 thoughts, anything of that nature. I know you have another outright coming, which we've mentioned on previous podcasts, so I'm sure the people know what's coming. But Justin Rose, Davis Riley, Aaron Wise, Louis Oosthuizen, Keegan, all between 70 and 75, and then Abe Answer, Seamus Power, Taylor Gooch, 90. And then we're over 100. Tyrrell Hatton, Webb Simpson, Russell Henley, Bryson at 120. We haven't seen him. Kokrak, and then your boy Patrick Reed, 120.
Yes, sir. I think.
Which, when you took that, was that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, and then he drifted all the way down to 60, and I thought I was a genius. And turns out I could have just waited till today when he went back to 120. So it's been a roller coaster, but I didn't lose value. That's a good thing.
No, you didn't.
It is a pretty heavy size bet on him, and I'll say it was. I felt better about it before the Memorial performance. I thought he was playing pretty well going into the Memorial, and then he did not play well. I do think it's funny though. I think there's a little bit of a kind of people are avoiding the live guys in the betting market, because before he withdrew from the Canadian Open last week, he was a fairly popular play. I saw him in a lot of cards, and then
No, and people definitely added that 120 number.
Yeah, and then people took him at the Canadian Open too last week. And then he withdrew right before, and now like no one has any interest in him this week. But it's kind of like if you liked him last week, and he didn't do anything negative since then. He's at a huge number. I guess maybe they just couldn't get there. What it is, but yeah, I don't know. I'm there. I'm locked in 120 to 1. Like I said, I mean, he wasn't that inspiring at the Memorial, but I do think there's like kind of a scenario that could play out where this event plays exactly into like Patrick Reed's wheelhouse. This year he's not been as sharp as like traditional years, but if we're talking about the second smallest greens of any major venue, and we're talking about a lot of missed greens and scrambling around, like that's exactly the type of event that Patrick Reed would thrive in. That's how he won kind of at Torrey Pines 2 years ago when he missed a ton of greens in regulation and just got up and down a ton of times and grinded his way through to save enough pars. So if it gets messy and everyone's missing greens, and like that's kind of an event where I would like to have him, and I think 120 to 1's a good number. Can he win? He hasn't really shown anything this year that could indicate him winning, but I will say, like he's played well at the U.S. Opens, and if this were like last year, he'd probably be going off at like 40 to 1. So he's just going to be the third consecutive guy on my card that I'm hoping for him to pop this week. It's getting a little risky down there, but I'm getting a little bold this week.
Yeah, that's fair. And yeah, Patrick Reed. I mean, it's in theory is a perfect event for Patrick Reed. I mean, he's been a mess this year for the most part. He's shown some glimpses of his old self, but we'll see if he can put it together this week. And I think the messier it gets, the potential upside for Patrick Reed is there. Speaking of guys who have not been very good recently, who we also like a lot, Abraham Ancer. I'm considering him on my top 20 card, and I would take that. It's only strictly because he played well at the PGA. I mean, I'm looking at his recent form here. I mean, he hasn't finished inside the top 20 outside of just the PGA since November of last year. It's just been very underwhelming. But the PGA did show a lot. I mean, he played really well on approach, was great off the tee, putted well. And he actually played decently at the Memorial, too. He finished 32nd. So maybe things are kind of shaping into form for a little bit for Abe Ancer. I don't think if there were to be a major he would win, I doubt it would be the U.S. Open. So I don't
I wouldn't bring him as the U.S. Open.
I don't feel badly about not having him on my card outright-wise, but I think top 20 is a pretty fair play for Ancer. We'll see what the number ends up being, if it's something I definitely want to add, but that PGA performance a few weeks ago definitely has gotten my attention and feel foolish. I felt foolish that week for not having him on my card in any capacity and was a little bit worried he was going to make a run at winning. Thank God that didn't happen. But, yeah. So let's get into some other top 20 plays. Do you have anything else top 20-wise down here? Do you have –
No, I might take Abe with you. I think he's got good accuracy, which will be helpful this week. A little bit concerned about him around the green, and he's not that long, but I think top 20 is not unrealistic, so I'll hop on that with you.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have anything else? Because I have a couple of top 20 thoughts for the people that could be big money makers that are well out of the box, and I won't imagine that they'll be on many people's cards. So,
I'm going to take one more, very long outright.
Okay.
Just because I couldn't pass on the number. 180 to 1 on Sergio Garcia. I mean, he's good. He's been really good off the tee, actually. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's going to be a big ask for him to win the U.S. Open, but that's why there's a big number next to his name.
Don't put much down to win a bunch.
Yeah, when I see that big of a number, I couldn't pass. So I'll be on board there for a long shot. But yeah, we can get into your top 20s.
All right. Well, just a few thoughts. I think Luke List is a decent long shot type top 20 play. He's kind of started to round into form a bit from, I mean, obviously winning earlier this year. He kind of since then went into a little bit of a spiral, played well at the PGA, played well at Memorial to a certain degree. And I think this course shapes up well for him in considering, he is long off the tee. His approach game can be super immaculate, and his around the green game has gotten a lot better. I think the putter is always something that's going to hold him back, but I think putting is going to be a huge deal this week. I mean, you're going to have to make putts from, 5 to 15 feet, so that could be a problem for Luke. But I think top 20 is a decent play on Luke. And then my two absolute long shot bomb top 20 plays are like plus 700, plus 800 on FanDuel currently. Going with the local guy who was super excited to get qualified for the U.S. Open, Scott Stallings. Someone we don't talk about a lot, but also kind of pops up here and there when you kind of least expect him to. He played really well at the Charles Schwab.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard you talk about him.
Yeah, difficult conditions. Dude is a monster, by the way. I mean,
he's jacked.
Jacked. And he's had some other really good finishes here. 16th at the Valspar, 13th at Valero. Played well at the Byron Nelson. And then, not so long ago, we saw him finish 4th at Charles Schwab in difficult conditions and played pretty well down the stretch. And he's in his home state of Massachusetts, a Worcester, Mass guy. I just butchered that horribly, but
I think that's like fairly accurate.
I think it's all right. I'm not gonna get it.
It's wrong.
Worcester.
There you go.
Yeah, my roommate freshman year of college was actually from there. He'd probably be pretty pissed.
And you thought my pronunciation was correct?
Yeah, well, if you say it in like a Boston accent, it kind of would have passed.
Okay, well, I don't know about that, but anyway, hometown guy. In terms of Northeast golf, I think he's got a little bit of an upper hand there, but really it's just the current form of him finishing 4th at Charles Schwab, being a hometown guy, playing pretty good golf this year in general, being long off the tee. He's been a pretty good approach player this year. He's top 40 in his last 24 rounds. He's been good on the par threes. I mean, there's not a ton to be said about his long iron game hasn't been great. He's not the best at avoiding bogeys, so he's gonna have to pull some strings here to get into the top 20. But plus 700, I think it's worth your while. And then another guy who we just saw recently play well, Wyndham Clark. I think this also similarly, if you're looking for long guys that are kind of down the board here, he's second in driving distance over his last 24 rounds. Surprisingly above average in his last 36 rounds in difficult scoring conditions. And then a lot of statistics you're not going to want to look at too much. But played well last week in Canada, finished 7th with a very poor stretch on the back nine. So I think there's some pretty good value on those two bombers that are down the board. I mean, they're 370-1 outright. So I think even if you play them top 40, I think they both have a good chance of making the cut with their types of game. And I think Scott Stallings in particular will be looking to make a statement this week in Massachusetts. So that's going to wrap up my thoughts there. Boss, you want to give us anything that we didn't touch on? I know you're on, obviously, Spieth with the boys and Homa with Matt.
Yeah, I don't have too much else yet. Unfortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. I don't have much conviction this week, although I do love Spieth and Homa. The only other guy I've added so far is Willie Z. I took him for top 10. Okay. I just think his current form, major form, all adds up for a good week. I'm just not quite there on the number or him getting his first win at the U.S. Open, but I think he plays very well. There'll definitely be some additions. I really don't know what direction I'm going to go yet. So
all right, that's fair. I mean, between 25 and 50, I think there's plenty of routes you could take. So yeah,
definitely. I mean, I always live kind of in that range anyway, but I think that's the place to be. So there'll probably be another guy or two. Possibly Shane Lowry is kind of at the top of my list of considerations, but I mean, there's a handful of guys in there. Sam Burns, possibly. So we'll see.
All right. And then for one done, have you guys submitted anything, early leans on one and done? What do you got? I have Scheffler locked in, and now after all of our Brooks Koepka talk, I'm kind of thinking of like a low-owned Brooks Koepka maybe in the one and done, but I don't know if I want to do that.
Wow. I mean, I would love that. I've fully talked myself into Brooks. Like, it's going to play really well this week and be in the mix. It's a major tradition that we have on this show. But I am right now leaning towards Spieth. I haven't used him yet, so I might just go all in on Spieth. But there's another. I think people have probably used him. I think that'll be a decent play.
Okay, Boss.
I have Rory locked in. I think I'm just going to ride with it. I mean, we all know one and done isn't my strong suit. So
taking the outright favorite doesn't seem like a bad move.
No, and I mean, I'm pretty sure he's only got 30% left in Mayo one and done. So granted, everyone could use him this week. I think he still will be fairly popular, but just numbers wise, he can't be the overwhelming guy. So
Yeah, you wouldn't. Think so.
I also, quick side note, I had him initially locked in as my one and done last week and decided to save him for a bigger tournament. So just another feather in my cap for a one and done this year. Pivoting off outright winners. Attaboy.
I love it. All right, just a brief recap. I got Spieth, Burns, Morikawa, Berger, Brooks, and Fleetwood on my outright card. I am surprisingly, I'm probably going to take at least one or maybe both of Lowry and Finau for top 20s, and then I do like Answer for top 20, and then some long shot plays on List, Wyndham Clark, and Scott Stallings.
I was going to say Finau was the other name that was kicking around, but I just despise myself for even uttering that out loud. So
That would be quite the trio in a row of Xander, Fitz, and Finau.
Oh man, we might be mushing ourselves into a Finau win this week, but
Yeah, I mean,
I do think he's going to play
playing
well.
really well.
Yeah.
Imagine
Yeah.
that.
And what do you got, Matt?
I have Spieth, Neiman, Homa, DJ Brooks, Patrick Reed, and Sergio over 100 down there. One and done, Jordan Spieth, and then top 20. I'm going to take Abe with you, and then probably some sort of combination of the guys that I have. I think for first round leader, I will be taking Tony, and I'm going to add a few more. I'm not sure who.
Yeah, first round leader. I also like Neiman and Zalatoris. Probably a little bit of like if they're going to play really well early, and I don't have an outright ticket on them. I also just think that of the guys that are available, that they have the best, one of the best chances of firing a relatively low score to par, considering the difficult conditions. I think they'll be able to potentially put a low number up there on Thursday. So I do like those two guys. Might add a couple longer shots for first round leader just to get exciting, but it's U.S. Open week, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited, ready to go. I hope we get a group winner. Jordan Spieth, I guess, is looking like our option.
Yeah, well, that would be amazing. All right, so U.S. Open in the books, episode 102. We'll be back at it again next week. I believe it's the Travelers, and we'll be moving on. I mean, not a ton of events left in the calendar year for the PGA, so for one and done purposes, time to get some winners on the board. So good luck to all this week, and for anyone that's hating on Brooks Koepka, I hope we can rub it in your face tomorrow, next week. So we'll talk to you then.